I had a friend that did woodshop in high school. He was very good at carving intricate pictures into the wood, so he made 2 carvings on separate boards, one for me, and Hello Kitty boards for Chris. They were the first ones he made for someone else, and the fact that he immediately thought of us should tell you how sweet he is. So that's the other reason I changed the names to avoid any hurt feelings. My family has always been a sort of magnet for the supernatural. It was obviously impossible that every single house we ever lived in is haunted, and during my 23 years of life, we have never stayed in one place for longer than 1 year. 2 at the most. My sister was always interested in the supernatural, even though when anything happens it scares her shitless. Unfortunately, her best friend, Quinn, was as well. I believe this is due to the fact that she's possibly psychic. On multiple occasions, she has known something bad was going to happen. Example being one time she was riding down the freeway with her mother, and casually said, "A semi-truck is going to crash under this bridge tonight." Her mother was terrified when she watched the news at night. So, being interested and curious in the supernatural, they decided to make a Ouija board out of a carving of Hello Kitty. Waiting until 3 a.m. to do it, they drew everything they needed on the back with a permanent black marker. They were just messing around at first, and when it started moving, they each thought the other was doing it, even when they both vehemently denied it. They were enjoying themselves until they heard something on the other side of the room. They're both a little spooked, but decided to just go with it. Chris asks, "Are you good or bad?" It said good, but she didn't put much faith into the answer because she has heard multiple stories about being lied to by a spirit. They proceed to ask questions, all the while the room starts feeling crowded, almost suffocatingly. Chris eventually asks, "How many of you are there?" They sit in complete silence. The homemade planchette doesn't move an inch. Both of them are holding their breath, feeling even more uneasy than they were before. Chris was about ready to call it quits when she felt the bed dip down behind her. Her description wasn't of something just sitting down, more like something easing their way onto it, trying to be sneaky. Chris freaks out, causing Quinn to freak out. The board is thrown across the room without being closed. After calming as much as they could, they got ready for bed. As Chris is falling asleep, Quinn shakes her. She looks scared and whispers to her, "The TV." Chris looks over and sees the lights on the cable box disappearing and reappearing in succession, as if someone was walking back and forth in front of it. Chris tells me she doesn't know what Quinn did, but she hid under the covers until the sun came through the window. After gathering her stuff, she leaves Quinn's house. She was feeling very happy at the end of the day when nothing happened. The next day, after getting Quinn up for school, my sister walks to Quinn's house in the mornings to get her up for school. Her parents leave for work before that, so it's up to Crystal to wake her up. It's always a big fight. Quinn is absolutely not a morning person. There's a lot of yelling and kicking involved. Quinn starts telling her about something that happened after she left the night before. She has 4 lights in her room, a closet light, one overhead, and 2 lamps. One right next to her bed that she keeps on during the night, the other situated on her dresser. Around 3 a.m., the bedside lamp stopped working completely. No amount of bulbs would work. The lamp itself was completely dead. They agree that it was really weird and went about their school day. That night, Chris answers the phone to a very upset Quinn. Her overhead light has done the same thing, leaving her with just the closet light and her other lamp. The next night she calls again. Her last lamp has stopped working. leaving her room partially shrouded in black, with only the closet light working. The thing about that one is that you need to leave the door open in order for the weak light to reach into the room. Obviously, she wasn't waiting around for that one to stop. Not wanting to be in a pitch-dark room with her closet wide open, she camped out in the living room that night and retreated back to her room before her parents woke up. If they had found out, our parents would have as well, and they would have been in the deepest shit they had ever been in. That same night, after getting off the phone, Chris was hanging out with my brother Co and his friends at their house. It is around 10 or 11 at night. Everyone is on the front porch and involved in a very funny conversation. When their dog starts flipping shit in the backyard, she goes to calm him down, but before she reaches him, she hears a woman scream. She says it was the loudest she's ever heard, describing it as expensive headphones with max volume. She tears out of there and leaps onto the porch, everyone still laughing and joking around. She asks if anyone heard the scream. Someone might be hurt. Just her luck, though. She was the only one who heard it. She went inside and didn't come out until it was time to go. Luckily, Quinn's parents decided to move 1 week later, and Chris helped pack. They wanted to find the board, close it, and be done with everything. They searched that creepy room top to bottom while they packed, but the Ouija board wasn't to be found. Eventually, a woman moved in. They know this because she had somehow gotten a hold of Quinn's parents' number and asked if anything strange had ever happened to them there. Classic part of almost every movie. Obviously, they said no. No way in hell the girls were actually going to admit to being the cause of it, even though they felt incredibly guilty that someone was living alone in the house after they caused the problems to arise. After that, nothing happened for a good while. But the woman must have done something because suddenly it appeared in Quinn's new house, escalating from broken lights. Quinn was alone in her new house. She is brushing her hair when she hears a loud thud coming from behind her. She turns around to check, and sees that one of the 3 circular mirrors that hangs over her bed has fallen off the wall. Then, the second one fell. Then, the third. She checked the nails and put them back, then started banging and jumping, trying to cause as much vibration as she can. They stayed in place. Honestly, she probably should have just explained it away, instead of trying to debunk it. She would have rested easier. A few weeks later, Chris stayed over, and Quinn's brother, around 8 I believe, had his bedroom next to the living room. It was a strange room. Big windowed doors instead of a normal door in a wall. Quinn was in the shower, so Chris was sitting on the couch, messing around on her phone, when she saw something out of the corner of her eye. She looked over and saw a shadow moving across the room. It was quite a bit taller than a child, and considering the fact that he was at a friend's house, it couldn't have been him. She sat on the bathroom toilet and talked with Quinn until she was done showering. A while later, Chris had woken Quinn up for school and sat on the living room couch while Quinn got dressed. Once again on her phone, she heard someone whisper her name. She ignored it, then continued to ignore it when it happened again. That is, until whatever it was screamed her name right next to her ear. She promptly kicked down Quinn's door, sat on her bed, and waited for her to finish getting dressed. They also have a big garage, and Quinn's mom is a breeder, so it houses quite a few birds. At least once a week, the birds will start screeching simultaneously for no reason. To the front of the garage wall is a refrigerator filled with all sorts of drinks. The door is quite difficult to open, so no way it happened by itself. But several times when she checked on the panicked birds, the door would be ajar. She also saw someone walking in there, but never checks it out. She's not like me, who stupidly investigates everything. Finally comes another moving day. Quinn was moving out of her parents' house and was going to be staying with me and my parents. Chris had moved in with her boyfriend out of town a few months prior, and I grew close to Quinn during that time. We even have inside jokes, much to my sister's chagrin. Her friend and her sister should not have inside jokes, she says. Because we had gotten so close, I offered to help her sort through her room and pack. I say offer, but she wore me down until I agreed. She is a very persuasive individual. Her room is located at the back of the house, and I was sitting on the floor organizing her belongings. It took about 5 hours. Her mom likes to tornado through her room when she's gone, and Quinn kept leaving me to find something she needed. Boxes, bags, a toolbox, etc. Every time she left me, I felt extremely uncomfortable, like I was being watched. I felt unwelcome, and had to put my back to a wall to feel even slightly comfortable. In these situations, I never let on how uncomfortable I am. No clue why. I've always been that way. I started feeling claustrophobic, and eventually had to leave the room before I had a panic attack. I was ecstatic when we loaded the last of her boxes into the truck and left that damn house. Or I should say that I was, until I was helping her unpack. I found the Ouija board nestled in the bottom of a box. They hadn't yet told me the story, but readily did so when I questioned why the hell they had turned Hello Kitty into a damn Ouija board. We haven't seen it since getting rid of it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it turns back up around here somewhere. This is kinda long, so bear with me. Okay, so a few years ago, one of my friends bought a house. Later on, adopted a dog. From day one, she barked at nothing in the dining room. Nothing at all. She would just stare and bark, and eventually calm down and go about her business. One day, dude hits me up and asked me to house sit, while he and his family were on vacation for a week. I saw it as a chance to sit around by myself, for a bit, and kick it. So I accepted. From the couch in the living room, you could see the dining room fully, part of the kitchen, and the whole bathroom. The first night was kind of weird, but I'd lived in a haunted house for 25 years, so bumps, creaks, and shuffling is nothing new to me. I heard all of these, and since it was a fairly new house, I didn't think anything of it. Well, in the middle of the night, his dog just starts barking, like her life depended on it. I am now just lying on the couch watching her, and waiting for her to stop so I can go back to sleep. Well, she starts growling, and then tucks her tail, her ears laid back, and bolts back towards me crying. That creeped me out a little. But like I said, I've lived in a haunted house for almost my entire life, and have seen my dog do the same thing many times. So not really any skin off my back just yet. That morning, I wake up, let her out back, and go back inside to get ready for work. I go outside a little later to call her in, and she's staring at a chair on the patio, growling. The chair just sits outside of the window in the dining room. When she finally notices me, she stops and comes right on inside, and instantly looks at the dining room and starts barking. Just the way she did the night before. Again, I'm a little creeped out, but it's nothing I haven't seen before, so whatever. I go on to work. Get back from work, and the dog is nowhere to be found. I call her over and over, searching everywhere. Finally, I find her underneath my friend's bed, tucked into the furthest corner, all curled up. After a few minutes, I'm finally able to get her out. Go into the living room, sit down, and start watching TV. She's sitting next to me, looking at the dining room from the corner of her eye. Something obviously scared the piss out of her, which is even more apparent now that she won't look directly over there. A couple hours later, I get up to let her out back. She won't come to the back door, which is next to the dining room, so I take her out front and lead her to the backyard. I'm standing out back, watching her basically enjoying the summer night, when I see a shadow in front of me, from the window behind me, dining room window. He lives in a subdivision within walking distance from a crappy neighborhood, and there were a couple of vehicles broken into a few weeks prior, so my first thought is that maybe someone snuck in while I went around the back of the house. So I sneak back around front and bust back inside. There's no one in the house. No one at all. The shadow definitely looked human. It was definitely moving. And it definitely wasn't mine. Well, that was weird, but again, it's nothing I haven't experienced before. I call the dog back and go on in. Getting ready for bed. I've been sleeping on the couch in case y'all hadn't picked that up. And the dog starts growling at the dining room again. Did so for about 5 minutes. Then turned and came over to me. Didn't cower or whimper this time. Well, I turned out the lights and laid down. Sometime during the ungodly hours of that morning, I hear what sounds like a click, which wakes me up. I look around and notice the dining room light is on. The chair is pulled from the table facing the living room. That made the hair on my neck stand up. The dog is still asleep. Eventually I get up and put the chair back in its place and turn the light out, walk back to the couch, lay down, and roll over away from the dining room. Then I hear the chair move against the floor. Now I'm freaked out. Dog still hasn't woken up. Curiosity gets the best of me, and I slowly roll over. The chair is facing the living room again, and I see something in the corner of my eye. The same shadow figure I saw that night is now standing in front of the whole bathroom. I guess spirits have bowel movements now and then. Sorry, had to throw some humor into the mix, but really, the thing was standing in front of the bathroom. Even though I can't see any detail other than the silhouette, I feel like it's just staring at me. So of course I roll over like an elementary kid and throw the blanket over my face. Didn't sleep until my alarm went off at 8 a.m. Now it's Wednesday. The dude comes back Friday. I get up, get ready for work, let the dog out, etc. The weird part is that I didn't feel uneasy or unsettled at all. Maybe it's because of me living in my own haunted house for so long, I don't know. Well, that night, nothing unusual happened at all. No shadows, no barking, growling, no chairs moving, no lights turning on. Thursday night, watching TV, when the motion-sensed floodlight on the back patio turns on. Dude's backyard bumps into some woods, so I'm thinking an animal made its way past the house. Then I see a shadow pacing back and forth across the window outside. Again, I'm thinking someone down the road may be outside, so I grab a shotgun and sneak around back. No one there. Then I hear the dog barking inside. I mean, she's barking really intensely. Getting creeped out again. So I run back inside and see her squaring up to something in the dining room. I don't see any shadow figures, but the cabinets are all open and the same chair is pulled away from the table again. She starts growling, and then bolts to the dude's room with her tail tucked. Now I'm just standing here staring at the dining room table, not really sure whether to stand there and piss myself or cry like a little girl. Like, I'm feeling super uneasy. Really uneasy. Eventually I coax myself into closing the cabinets and putting the chair back in its place. Again. The rest of the night I just sat on the couch and watched TV. Couldn't get the dog to come back out from under the bed. Kept looking around from the corners of my eyes. Never saw anything else the rest of the night. My alarm went off while watching reruns of Survivor Men, and I got up, got my crap together, and went to work. Later that afternoon, my friend texts me that he's made it home and asks why the dog is being so weird. I told him I'd explain it when I got off work. So after work, I head there and tell him the whole story. He said he'd seen her bark a few times at nothing, but never really intensely like I had seen. Since that week, I've house sat there a few times, and not once has it happened again. I can't explain it as anything other than something paranormal. Last December, a very good friend came to visit, after having moved to Australia recently. She stayed in my family's home with us for roughly 3 weeks, in our spare bedroom. She stayed in the empty bedroom in our basement, and I slept in my room 1 floor up. Everyone has creepy shit happen to them in the middle of the night, in the dark hours where there isn't another soul awake in the neighborhood. But this happened around 6 in the morning. The sun was rising. There was light creeping into my bedroom through the blinds. Creepy things aren't supposed to happen in the morning, when it's quiet and light outside. I woke up because I heard music. It was playing quietly, so that I couldn't discern a melody or specific song, but it sounded like a contemporary pop song, like something that would have been on the radio. I woke up groggy, and saw my best friend standing just a few feet from my bed. She was holding her phone in its exact yellow case, and I assumed she was waking me up for the morning. The music kept coming, seemingly from her phone. I didn't have a radio anywhere in my room, so it was the only possible source. I asked her what was up, and she just stared at me, face completely unchanging. And then she was gone. The music stopped, and she was gone like she'd never been there to begin with. I was completely awake at this point, and my heart was starting to pound. I called out to her, because it didn't make sense for her to be gone. She was only there a minute ago. My room was still pretty dimly lit for how early it was. And as I sat up in bed, peering around the room, I somehow had the thought that she was just messing with me for some reason. It wasn't like her to play weird games, but what else could she be doing? I was thoroughly unnerved, but had given up, and was about to lay back down when I saw her again. She appeared very suddenly, standing at the foot of my bed, phone in hand. The music had started again, soft but undeniably there. I jumped, startled, and just as I opened my mouth to ask her what she was doing, she was gone again. My heart was hammering in my chest, and all I could think to do was beg her to stop whatever she was doing. I had to fight to say the words. My voice was shaking and my throat was tight. This wasn't normal. This wasn't okay. This wasn't my friend. My dog, who sleeps on the floor near my bed, had woken up and was watching me with his ears up, attentive and calm. The fact that he showed no signs of distress or confusion rattled me to the core. And I ran out of my bedroom before that thing could come back again. I collapsed on the bathroom floor down the hallway, shaking more than I ever had in my life. I remember how much my chest hurt, how fast my heart was going. I could hear it pounding in my ears like I'd been running for my life. My dog ambled into the bathroom and pressed his head into my legs. He was still calm, like nothing had happened. But he must have been able to tell something was wrong with me, because normally he ignores whether or not I get out of bed. I sat there, fingers buried in his fur, shaking for a long time. When I could feel my legs again, I went into the living room and sat on the couch for the rest of the morning, waiting for the rest of my family to get up. Once it was a reasonable hour, I went downstairs, into the spare room where my friend was staying. She was still asleep. I sat on the bed next to her and she woke up, greeting me with a "Good morning," I told her I had a question, and that it was going to sound really weird. I asked her if she'd been in my room earlier, that it was fine, but I'd woken up and she'd been standing there. She got this really confused look on her face, brow furrowed like she couldn't get her head around the idea, and was adamant that she'd been in the spare room all night, asleep. I didn't make the connection until a day or two later, but once I realized it was there, I've been on edge to be in my own bedroom alone. You see, every few months, I wake up in the middle of the night. Someone sits on my bed. I, very, very clearly feel the mattress depressed next to me. I sit up to see who it is and what they want, assuming it's a family member. And there is no one there. This had happened about 3 times in the months prior to my friend's visit. There's something in my room. I don't know what it wants. Hey guys, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening. I'm very glad that paranormal stories are being well received, so I shall certainly continue doing them for the foreseeable future. What I may end up doing is alternating between paranormal stories and different kinds of experiences, like UFO encounters and so on. As I try different things out, we'll see what works best, and I'll proceed from there. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take good care of yourselves.